Bienvenidos worldwide fans of cinema, Jaime En Fuego here for another installment of Enfuegotainment, where I'm always covering the hottest entertainment with an edge. And once again, I have a lovely lass with me, Miss Brandy Bain. Gracias for being here to discuss this film with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to. And so this was a film that is doing something that is kind of a dying art. Stop motion animation. Seriously, from Jason and the Argonauts in the 60s to Nightmare Before Christmas that I know you love, and even something like Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's really not very practical in the fact that everything is like 3D, CG, animated now. It's like, it's a dying art. What's your thoughts on just that whole thing?
I think that there is kind of been a resurgence, especially with like The Little Prince, for instance.
Perhaps,
so
yeah. That's a Netflix show, right?
It's a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
Yeah.
I've seen a little more of it lately. I'm hoping that it will continue. It's become more intricate, and I quite enjoy it. So.
Nice. There's a company called Laika that did this film, and so I've only seen one of their movies. It was their first one called Coraline that we actually saw in theaters, some of the best 3D that I ever saw put to screen. And this film that we are about to discuss, which is KUBO and the Two Strings, was made by the same company, but they did do two films in between this that I have not seen. Box Trolls and Paranorman. Have you seen either of those?
I've seen both of them.
I haven't. I'm totally behind on the times, guys. What did you think about those two films?
I loved the Box Trolls.
Yeah?
I absolutely adored it. Paranorman was good, but
Could have been better.
yeah, I feel like it could have been better. But I really, really loved the Box Trolls a lot.
And that was their most recent one before this film. And the other interesting thing about KUBO is that Lance Knight, the guy who was the lead animator on those three films we just mentioned, Coraline, Paranorman, Box Trolls, this was his directorial debut with KUBO.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If you must blink, do it now. Pay careful attention to everything you see, no matter how unusual it may seem. If you look away, even for an instant, then our hero will surely perish. It is time to follow my own path. My name is KUBO. This is my story.
Your magic is growing stronger, but when we grow stronger, the world grows more dangerous.
So one thing we always do here in Enfuegotainment is a little bit of bueno, malo, and feo. She always laughs about that, but yeah, standard procedure for some good, some bad, and some ugly. Try to, look at this stuff objectively, and the bueno was in abundance in this film. First and foremost, the fact that the world that Laika creates, and they use these little miniatures, which is like the craziest thing about that, and they just zoom in so closely that you really feel like you are right in the middle of this world. Visually, am I right?
I agree.
Incredible
It
film.
was beautiful. It was done so well. It was so intricate too, especially with all the origami folding and
Oh, goodness.
yeah, it was gorgeous.
It truly was. And the other interesting thing that I want to say is they combined that visual artistry with another beautiful aspect of music, and the fact that this film really just it matches the two of them together. They're almost like synonymous in the fact that they need one another to get the point across and the story across. Because if we're going to give a little background story about KUBO, he is a young boy. His mother is in bad shape, and they're essentially staying in this cave up on a mountain that was just so gorgeous, overlooking the ocean. And what he does every day is he goes out into this nearby village and he entertains. And he doesn't just entertain, he captivates. He actually gains the attention of this entire little village anytime he is there telling his tales. And he's not just telling a story, he is accompanying it with music. It's almost like borderline theater.
It follows the beat of the music and takes life once he begins to play. And so these songs, as he goes along with the story, they're so mesmerizing. You get drawn in so deeply. And the cool thing that you haven't mentioned yet is that every day he does this, but he never seems to give a conclusion to the story. There's never an end.
He can't finish it. He even mentions this.
Continues and continues and continues, and he's got to be home by nightfall. So as soon as this bell rings in town, the story's done. I mean, stop, drop,
Yeah, because he has to get back to his mom.
And he's got to get back to his mother before nightfall. So that's a little background on KUBO there.
Yeah, he admits to the fact that he's good at telling a story, but he's not good at finishing a story. And so it's just an odd dichotomy, but that's another thing I can mention as far as Bueno goes. Beautifully written too, and so very heartfelt. As my boy Cecil would say, it got me in the feels, and really did. I mean,
so much wow, so many feels.
Indeed, and if not for the fact that the visuals were so good, the story still would have had punch. But when all these things came together of this story that encompasses family and just holding on to memories so that those who are no longer with us or transition into other places are still going to be kept alive through that memory.
It was so beautiful. It was so sentimental. It was
very sentimental. Yes, indeed.
Almost a tearjerker,
Almost a tearjerker. I'm saving that for my ugly, because there's a song that's used at the end, which we'll mention. But something you mentioned to me right after the movie that kind of went over my head a little bit was the amount of symbolism as far as Bueno goes in this movie. I mean, maybe I wasn't quite as perceptive as you, but you saw tons of it, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of symbolism from the idolic figures, i.e. the monkey, who's the charm, to just all the representative animals throughout the whole film, and even in the strength and the bond of, like the power of three, which is pretty common in witchcraft.
Him and his parents, right?
Well, him and his parents, yeah, with the power, but also the fact that there were three sisters, and then when the third sister fell in love, and that whole thing got pulled away from them, they lost part of their power, and they were saying how she was the most powerful one. But yeah, I guess the biggest symbolism in the power of three would be the end, and I don't want to ruin too much in the
I at least picked up on the symbolism of all the Eastern, not so much mythology, but just religion in general. Everything from the reincarnation aspects that they talk about to transference of energy, like I mentioned
and
earlier
then honoring
too.
those who are no longer with us and keeping their memory alive, and that has so much power and significance. And
that's the magic
really,
of memory, right?
Yeah, really anything that you identify with, whether that's a cross or a pentagram or an ankh or whatever it is. If it's a little thin red band, it only has power because you believe it has power, and once you believe in something, then it has that much more significance. And
that's
when
like a self-fulfilled prophecy.
When something like that is passed down through generation to generation to generation to generation,
yeah, like the instrument
all of this
or
positive
the sword
thought momentum behind it, then it has more power. And so that was one of the the big things too, in that where he's
Biggest
leading to all
buenos.
these huge powerful objects. But it shows that the most immense power is being a product of true love. The power of true love is a transcendent and incredibly powerful thing in all fairy tales, and I think that's what made this so good and made me really just pop it in there with everything else that I admire and look up to, and just immerse myself in so much, is that the significance that they place on the power of love. And I don't think a lot of things do that as often anymore.
Yeah, which fairy tales often did, and this was kind of a modern
whimsical
fairy tale. Yeah. So is there any Bueno that I have not touched upon, from the heartfelt writing to just the beautiful artistry of both the music and the visuals and how they all came together?
I mean, I guess it's kind of leaning into your Malo, as you would say, because sometimes good can be bad and sometimes bad can be good.
A little bit.
So I'm going to go with Rooney Mara's performance as the sisters.
Oh, goodness.
I thought that they were fantastically scary.
They were very scary.
Incredibly intimidating.
Probably scare a little kid.
It was done really well, but they were bad. They were bad sisters. So I'm going to say in this situation, the bad was good.
Okay.
But it was still bad.
Okay, that'll work. You see, that would almost be an ugly, like a Feo, for the sheer fact that they were so bad that they were good. The performance was eerie and scary. So.
It was creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can dig on that. When you get more into Kubo's family history, the fact that he only has one eye, which is shown in the trailers and stuff, not going to spoil anything once again, as we mentioned, but it is bad, bordering ugly. So my Malo, my bad, if we're going to transition into that, is the fact that some things that I felt didn't really hit quite as good. The film was so heartfelt in its writing that when it tried to be a bit more whimsical and more playful, and there was like a few jokes and things of that nature, I felt like they kind of fell flat a little bit. Like they weren't really that funny, and I know they were trying to ease the tension a little bit, because this is a very serious film throughout the predominance of it, whether they're fighting big skeleton warriors or crazy evil floating sisters like Miss Brandy was just mentioning, or the climax and the epic final fight, which is really just, there's so much going down from family stuff to I don't know. Yeah. It's going down. Yeah, but another bad that I could mention is that you had Charlize Theron and you had Matthew McConaughey voicing these two leads that spend a good deal of time with Kubo, and I felt like they were mailing it in a little bit more so. I know that they were just trying to one play it stoic and one play it playful, but I just felt like it could have been better, and that ties in with me how I can jump into the Feo. Okay, a little bit of maybe ugly in this instance, and not good ugly, not just like visceral wow type of ugly, but I felt very much at times like this was very similar to American dubbing in anime, where you wanted the characters to sound more. This film takes place in ancient Japan, and a lot of the characters and a lot of the delivery sounded just very white and very just kind of vanilla. And for that aspect, I was at least a little disappointed, which is why some people may say, oh, you always got to watch the subtitled version so that you can actually hear the nuances of the language and the dialect proper.
There were several nuances, though.
There was a little bit, but not in the main characters, and so that's at least one thing maybe that I can point out that I felt could have been done a little better. Maybe the casting could have been a little more ethnically spot on, but as a whole, I felt like most of the voice acting was good, especially from the supporting cast. George Takei was in there. With some of the larger stars, maybe not quite the spot-on casting, but as a whole, I felt like the ensemble at least worked together, and hey, this is me kind of grasping at straws, as I often like to say. Is there anything else that, like, ugly you could mention?
I thought that end, like, there could have been more.
So this is more bad ugly.
It's bad ugly, yeah. I mean, it was ugly though, because the main villain, I thought, was he was scary. I really liked his look. He was ugly. It was gross, intimidating. But then I felt like I was let down, I guess, at this end of this epic battle, the final countdown, so to speak. That I just felt like it came too easy. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but I felt like it came too easy, although I felt like there was a great resolution after the fight.
Wonderful resolution.
It was beautiful, very heartfelt, incredibly sentimental. I still feel like I was aching for a little bit more of that grotesque and ugly and just ridiculous battle that should have been, that I felt like was mildly a cop-out, so.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, so that's definitely a malo Feo. It's some bad ugly in the fact that she thought it was anticlimactic, and maybe it did end a little abruptly, but didn't Kubo say that he was bad at ending stories as opposed to...
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
So maybe that would at least be self-reflective. But the thing about me is that there is a song that is covered by Miss Regina Spektor that goes on in the end credits of this film. And so if you've seen this, and since we're not spoiling too much, you'll at least chuckle to yourself when I mention this. But the title of the song is exactly what I was doing at the very, very end of this movie, because seriously, it was spot on in the emotion, and I can't remember the last time something aside like a Pixar film really invoked so much emotion at any point in time in a film as the very, very end of this one did for me. So yeah, I was that cover song. Look for it in the ending credits, because that's what I was experiencing. Oh goodness, it was so good though. And as a whole, we can talk about a couple malos, a couple feos, some good and some bad, but it was pretty much minuscule in this film, because visually and it could have looked really pretty and not had a story of much substance to it, but it totally did, and it resonated, and I think this has officially leapfrogged the Zootopias, and I really don't know what else was in like the major running for the best animated film of the year as far as that Oscar goes, but I think we have a front runner now officially with
I would hope
Kubo.
so. Not to say that I didn't like Zootopia, because I did, but I feel like there was a lot more talent visually put behind this film than in Zootopia, and I also feel like just emotionally the story, it tugs on all your heartstrings through the whole thing. It's so sentimental and so emotionally captivating and mesmerizing, and just it draws you in, and you're pretty much on the edge of your seat the whole time. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed the film,
especially once his quest gets going. And one other thing I'm going to mention that is a favor, because I saw it a mile away, is there's two reveals in, I'd say, like the third act that I thought they were pretty obvious from when certain characters were introduced who they were, and they keep it a mystery. And I was just like thinking the whole time, hey, that's got to be so-and-so. So, hey, that's at least my last bit for you. Did you think that was a little obvious?
Yeah.
The reveal? Yeah, totally. I mean, but hey, it's a PG film for kids, but that's another ugly, you know, as we, you know, round out the proceedings. It was pretty scary and vicious and talking about killing people and stuff. And I think the average very young child might find this ugly and a little bit
Especially
scary.
the
with some of
witches.
the witches, big time, when that mask got broken off.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Intense. And so it had its intensity, you know, despite the fact that, you know, it's animated. So it's not for the littlest of kids. This is actually the perfect type of animated film. Much like Pixar, I hate to keep mentioning them, but, you know, many in the Disney fold have been able to create stuff that appeals to all ages, you know, adults, their children, every age in between. And I think Kubo definitely is that sort of film, except elevated. So
I agree. I'd say get out there and see it. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got that kind of family love, it's got whimsical fantasy.
Scares.
It's definitely got some horror in it with the scary villains. Yeah, it was a great film. I really liked it.
I think it was even beyond the great. So I could extend a grande gracias to you, Miss Brandolin, for being a part of this review with me. This is a film the both of us had talked about seeing, so that's why she is my special guest today. I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can always find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, discussing all of the hottest entertainment with an edge, you know, whether it's music or cinema or whatever it may be. So once again, thank you, Miss Brandolin.
You're welcome.
And until our next coverage of the hottest entertainment with an edge, hasta luego, sin amigos. But come on, let's make it sooner rather than later.
Adios.
Later.